When you can get really good at prioritizing tasks and setting boundaries between your work and your side hustle, that can help you avoid burnout. Because when I look back at that younger version of me who is doing all the things all at the same time, I am shocked that I didn't burn out sooner. I'm Jenna Kutcher, your host of the Goal Digger podcast. I escaped the corporate world at the age of 23 with nothing more than a $300 camera from Craigslist and a dream. Now I'm running a 7-figure online business that feels even better than it looks, all from my house in small town Minnesota with my family. Here, we value time as our currency. We mix the woo and the work, and we are in the pursuit of building businesses that give us the freedom to live lives that we love. I've always loved turning big goals into reality, and I'm here to help you do the same. This isn't just a peek behind the curtain. Come along with me and my guests as we tear the whole curtain down. Every week, we tackle practical, no-fluff marketing strategies and host honest discussions on what works and what doesn't. Join me and my expert guests for actionable insights to help you grow your dream business with confidence. Pull up a seat and get ready to be challenged, inspired, and empowered. This is the Goal Digger Podcast. Have you ever dreamt of turning that side hustle into your full-time gig or even scaling it to a 6-figure business or beyond? Well, today's episode is all about making those dreams a reality. I'm going to dive into the smart money moves that help me bootstrap my business from the ground up and how you can use those same strategies to grow yours. Whether you're just starting out or you're in the thick of growing your side hustle, these practical tips and strategies that I'm about to share with you can help you manage your time, prioritize your spending, and make savvy financial moves to propel your business forward. Are you ready? Let's dive on in. With smaller budgets, shorter timelines, and sky-high expectations, growth is feeling really painful right now. But HubSpot is here to help. They just announced more than 150 major product updates that'll make impossible business growth feel impossibly easy. Like Breeze, HubSpot's suite of new AI tools that'll help you say goodbye to busy work and hello to better work. There's Breeze Copilot, a sidekick to assist with all your tasks and boost productivity. Breeze Agents to automate manual time-consuming work and add expertise. And Breeze Intelligence to give you the richest, most comprehensive picture of your prospects, so you know which are most likely to become loyal customers. They've also reimagined their marketing and content hubs with new ways to create breakthrough content, updated features to generate better leads, and lots more to uplevel your marketing and your revenue forecast. Get ready for growth without the growing pains. Visit HubSpot.com/spotlight to see them all and demo for yourself. That's HubSpot.com/spotlight. Let me first take you way back in time to the very beginning of my business. It looked nothing like it looks today. When I think back to that stage of my life, it was a really pivotal stage. And I often wonder, how the heck did I fit everything in? Let me kind of paint the picture for you. So I was 22 years old. I was newly in a corporate gig. I had been in my gig for a couple of years. I was planning a wedding. I was paying student loans. I was commuting an hour to work each way. I was training for a full marathon. Like, when I look back at those early days, I must have been like the Energizer Bunny, because I sure as heck don't think I could do all of those things at the same time. And yet somehow I did. And what's really interesting is that I had this determination to figure out something different, because while my corporate gig sounded really impressive, and by many means it was, I recognized very early on that I didn't want someone else to plan my life out for me. And it was so interesting because I never necessarily went into entrepreneurship thinking I'm going to be a photographer for the rest of my life. But my camera was kind of the vehicle that helped me get out of the corporate world and into entrepreneurship. And I loved photography. In fact, I still love photography. I recently just did some photos for one of my family members, and like, it just ignited that artistic spark in me. And I'm like, still got it. I love it. But it's really interesting to think about even the finances around all of the moves that I was making, from funding our wedding to paying off student loans to living off of a corporate salary to starting this business. And what's interesting is that I bootstrapped my business through and through. I never had an investor. I never took out any loans. I didn't come from any other entrepreneurs. Like I was a first generation entrepreneur figuring it out, fresh out of college, fresh with debt, and somehow I made it work. And so today, as we're talking through the money moves, I'm not only going to share some of the things that I did that I really attribute to my success and think, man, that 22, 23-year-old version of me was really smart, but I'm also going to share some things that I would do now because obviously the landscape has changed over the last decade. So first, let's talk about bootstrapping. So bootstrapping involves starting and growing a business using personal finances and revenue from the business itself without relying on extra funding. And a lot of times when you hear about bootstrap businesses, they are now, these multi-million-dollar companies that get sold to investors, but they were bootstrapped. Now, according to Harvard Business Review, bootstrap companies are often more resilient and adaptable because they learn to operate lean and efficiently. And this is 100% what I did. So when I was first starting my photography business, I used my 9-to-5 job and I used that security that it gave me in order to help fund the photography business. Now, the startups to start a photography business aren't super huge, but you still need to buy a camera, lenses. I needed to get insurance. Like there was a lot of different things that you don't necessarily think of. A lot of times you think you go home, buy a camera and a lens and you're good to go, but there were a lot of different expenses. And so what I was doing is I was living off of a very tight budget, which I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. But my budget was allocating for a few hundred extra dollars per month. And essentially I was putting that right into my business. And then any money I was making from shooting photos went directly back into the business. So I was not paying myself. I was leveraging that money to help fund whatever I needed next, whether it was a website or a logo or a URL. All of those little things can add up. And so having a job, whether it's a 9-to-5 or any other type of job, can give you a financial cushion and it can significantly reduce the pressure on somebody who's in the early stages of business. So if you are someone listening to this episode and you have a side hustle or you're thinking about starting one or you want to start a business, but right now you're working in a job, even if you don't love it, just understand that it is not only possible, but sometimes it is really beneficial to leverage what you're currently doing and using that knowledge and that income to help you get to where you want to go. A survey by Small Business Trends found that 62% of entrepreneurs started their businesses while working full-time. 62%. This allowed them to manage financial risks more effectively. And here's kind of a fun fact. According to Gus 2021 Women Entrepreneur Report, women are more likely to bootstrap their businesses, with 60% of women entrepreneurs relying on personal savings to start their ventures. It was super interesting. I was actually on a Zoom call with a bunch of women last night, and it was a mindset call. And I was just kind of tuning in like a fly on the wall. And there were so many money mindset beliefs that women hold. And I think everybody holds them, but especially women, around their worthiness, the ability to invest in themselves and their dreams, the ability to believe that they are smart investors and that they'll make their investments worth it. And so I think it's really interesting because not only are women kind of up against this masculine business world, but we're also kind of up against a lot of the lies we've maybe been believing about our worth and if we're actually worth investing in our dreams. So when we think about bootstrapping, and if you are going to leverage an existing job to help you start your business, one of the most important factors that we have to bring into this equation is time management. Effective time management is absolutely crucial for balancing a side hustle with a full-time job. When you can get really good at prioritizing tasks and setting boundaries between your work and your side hustle, that can help you avoid burnout. Because when I look back at that younger version of me who is doing all the things all at the same time, I am shocked that I didn't burn out sooner. And so you want to make sure that the time that you're spending on your business or your side hustle is time spent on things that actually move the bottom line or give you a real result. And for me, this was something that I had to learn the hard way. Is it is so easy to get sucked into what is sexy, what is shiny, what looks impressive. But we want to make sure that, especially if you're juggling extra duties, whether you are a parent or you have a 9 to 5 or you're juggling an extra career, you want to make sure that anytime you are pouring into your business, it is time that is actually leading to a real tangible result. So don't get caught up in the game of spending your time on things that look impressive. Spend your time on things that actually give you a direct result. Okay. The next thing we want to focus on is prioritizing needs versus wants. I will never forget an interview that I did years and years ago where my guest said, "Are you a real business or are you focused on trying to look like a business?" And there is a huge distinction here. Again, what I was just talking about is that so often as entrepreneurs, especially early entrepreneurs, we want everything to look perfect, right? We want the perfect website, the perfect social media feed, the perfect logo, all of these things. They're all amazing, but they likely aren't actually helping you be a real business at the very beginning. A real business at the very beginning is having an offer and selling it and getting money in exchange for it. And so a lot of times when we are starting out, especially if you are wired like I am with these perfectionistic tendencies and with this eye for design and detail, then we can get really caught up in the way things look and forget that like, hey, I actually need to do real transactions to be a real business and not just to look like one. And so when we talk about prioritizing needs versus wants, we have to get really clear on what is an essential and what is a luxury, distinguishing between nice to haves and need to haves. That can help allocate resources more efficiently. Research from Forbes suggests that startups should focus on essential investments that directly contribute to revenue generation and business growth, avoiding unnecessary expenditures on non-essential items. And so you have to get really clear on what you actually need, what is a need to have and not a nice to have in order to run a profitable business. And then you've got to focus more on being the business instead of looking like one. According to SCORE, 30% of small business owners struggle to identify essential expenses, which can lead to financial strain. And I would argue that this is where a lot of people get things wrong, where they are, again, focusing on the wrong items and not actually doing the things that are required for them to bring in a profit, to bring in revenue, and to be an actual business. So at the very beginning of my photography career, I was just on Facebook. I didn't have a website. I started a free WordPress blog and I started sharing my work there. What I was focused on is like, how can I book a shoot and get paid for the shoot while I then build everything out behind the scenes? And so I think that nowadays we have this tendency to wait to launch the business until everything is perfect. But I think that is a fatal flaw of entrepreneurs these days. I think you've got to get out there and do the thing. I think you've got to have an offer that people are willing to pay for and to fulfill that offer and to learn while you are on the job. And then again, leveraging the income you're bringing in to help build out those other pieces of your business. It does not need to be done or perfect in order for it to be effective. And so getting super clear on your needs and your wants. And I would say like sitting down and making a list. Like your early investments should be essential tools, software, and professional services that can support your core operations, whatever they are. So when you're thinking about early investments, you want to think of what is truly essential. Like I couldn't have been a photographer without a camera, right? Like that is essential for me to do the job. But did I need a whole lineup of lenses? No, that would have been a nice to have, but it wasn't a need to have. And so I slowly built out my gear collection as the money came in and as time allowed. So again, just getting really clear on understanding what your essentials are and making sure that what you are investing back into your business is going towards things that will help you to scale and help you to perform better as an entrepreneur. Okay, let's be real. Why are we still overpaying for wireless? I know I've been guilty of it, but Mint Mobile is here to change the game. For just $15 a month on a 3-month premium plan, you can get unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data on the nation's largest 5G network. That's right, $15. You can even bring your own phone, keep your number, and all of your contacts. The switch is super easy and there's no need to start from scratch. You get to keep everything the same and just pay less. like way less. If you've been searching for a smarter, cheaper way to manage your phone bill, this is the sign you've been waiting for. No hidden fees, no surprises, just a great deal on wireless. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/goaldigger. That's mintmobile.com/goaldigger. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/goaldigger. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions. If you're a creative soul looking for a way to take your photography or event business to the next level without adding more hours to your schedule, you're going to love this inspiring story. Catalina was a wedding photographer working her tail off to make $1,000 for weeks of work. But when she added a photo booth to her business, everything changed. She started charging the same amount for just 3 hours of work. Since then, she scaled her business to 7 figures. Now, if you're thinking that sounds like the dream, you need to check out this free masterclass from Photo Booth Supply Co. It's called Capture Success: How to Turn Your Creative Passion into a 6-Figure Photo Booth Business. Catalina is going to show you how you can take what you're already passionate about and turn it into a massive profit. You'll learn how you can earn $1,000 or more per event with a photo booth rental business. If you're someone who loves creating memories, or maybe you've been looking for a fun side hustle, you've got to check this out. Head to photoboothsupplyco.com/goaldigger to get your free access and my special promo code. This is your chance to work smarter, create more freedom, and build something truly amazing. That's photoboothsupplyco.com/goaldigger. The next thing we should talk about, and this is something that I want to hug my 22-year-old self for, is getting professional advice. So when I was just starting out, we lived in this tiny village in Wisconsin. It was 1,200 people for the population. And there was this little brick building on Main Street, which was an accountant's place. And I remember walking on in and setting up an appointment. And this was before I'd even earned a single dollar as a photographer. I knew that I was going in that direction, and I knew that I wanted to start a business. And I am really thankful that I kind of went backwards and saw the accountants before the business started going, so that I had professional advice and I knew I was setting things up right from the jump. And here's a funny thing. I will never forget. I had gone onto LegalZoom to set up an LLC, and then I set it up incorrectly, and then the accountants had to redo it anyways. And so it was just a reminder from the very beginning of get the professionals in first. It's going to save you time, money, energy, and frustration. There's a study by Xero that found that 90% of small business owners who worked with an accountant felt more confident about their financial decisions. 90%. So if you are someone who is entering into entrepreneurship, or maybe you have a side hustle that is starting to provide results for you, getting in that professional advice and getting someone to help you with the financial side of your business can be one of the best things you do. And what I have personally found when it comes to financial advice and getting the right advisors in my life and in my business is that they save me money. So a lot of times people get so focused on how much is it going to cost, but if you hire the right accountants, they know ways to help you save money, to help you hedge your bets, to help you make sure your taxes are correct. And even just the peace of mind, I think, is so powerful, because a lot of us didn't go to school for this, right? We didn't learn tax law. We don't understand all the liabilities. We don't understand all that. And so getting some extra help in early can be one of the best things you can do. And I highly, highly recommend it. Engaging an accountant before you make significant revenue helps set up proper financial systems and understand your obligations, especially when it comes to taxes. The American Institute of CPA notes that early accounting advice can prevent costly mistakes and ensure compliance with tax laws. This is where I was like, dang it, I totally went on LegalZoom myself, set it up wrong, had to change everything over. And so you want to make sure that you are doing things right from the jump. Beyond just taxes, accountants can help you with things like budgeting, financial forecasting, setting up accounting software. All of this can really help when it comes to long-term financial health and growth. So I could not recommend it more. In just a few minutes, I'm going to share something that I think changed my life, especially if you are an entrepreneur where you have busy seasons and slow seasons. This was something I did right. So stay tuned for that. So the next thing that I want to talk about is investing in learning. So taking on mentors, whether they are free or paid mentors, and investing in learning from people who have gone before you. This is probably the fastest way to accelerate your business success. Just last night, I bought and was taking an online course. So like even over a decade into entrepreneurship, I am still valuing education and learning from other people who have figured things out faster or better than I know so that I can keep on learning. Entrepreneurs who are consistently investing in education and mentorship are way more likely to achieve their business goals and experience faster growth. So if you are someone who you're like, I want to hit the ground running, I want to make sure this is a success, I don't want to waste time and money and energy, I don't have time, money, and energy to waste, then investing in learning can be one of the best things you can do. And again, when we look at the ways that we focus on looking like a business, again, the visual things, or we look at ways that we can invest in being an actual business, I would argue that investing in learning from people who are already doing what you want to do or who have already achieved what you are going out to achieve is the fastest way to fast track your success. And so there are so many different ways you can learn. And again, this doesn't all have to be paid. You listening to this very podcast is you investing your time into learning. I actually did an entire podcast about all the different levels of mentorship that you can take on, from free in terms of podcasts to books, to online courses, to masterminds, to retreats. And so I'll link that episode up for you, but go listen to it if you're like, I need a mentor or I need extra help in my life and my business, but I don't necessarily know where to go. I will link that one up for you because I just think it's really, really powerful. And it's interesting because I remember my early days as an entrepreneur. I will never forget, some of the first online courses that I took and just feeling like, oh my gosh, can I really do this? Is this the right investment? Like, what's going to happen? Like, how do I make sure that this was a good investment? And money was tight. Like, I was not rolling in the dough. Again, I was paying for a wedding, paying off student loans, living off of my salary. Like, Drew and I weren't living together. Like, there's just so many aspects happening. And so whenever I invested in something like an online course, I set out to make sure that I was going to be that person's top success story. Like, I was going to follow every single thing they said. And so I was just a really, really good student. And then as my business started to scale, that's when I started to make more significant investments in things like masterminds. And it's so interesting because when I look at my career and maybe the different places where I was able to like jump up into the next level of my business or entrepreneurship, those were the times where I made more significant investments. And then me, the determined investor, set out to make sure like this is a worthy investment and I'm about to show the world what I'm going to do with this. And so not only do you need to consider investing in learning, but you also have to make sure that you're willing to do the work that it's going to take to get the results. And I think that oftentimes we see people who are like, I bought an online course and I didn't do anything with it. Like, that's not the course creator's fault. Like, that is you needing to sit down and take it seriously. And so sometimes I found that when the investment hurts a little, like where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. That is where I am dead set and determined to make sure that it's worth it. And so for me, I almost play this game of like, all right, I'm laying some money down. I will make sure that I am a wise investor. And the only way I can do that and control that is through the effort that I'm going to put in order to get the results. And so over the years, I've literally done every type of mentorship, from free podcasts to reading the books, to joining the online courses, to coaching, to masterminds, to fostering just like beautiful relationships with my peers. Like, it has just been the best way to learn, to scale, and to grow sustainably. And so investing in learning. And again, I'll link up that podcast episode for you that talks about all the different levels of learning and how you can take on mentors, whether free or paid, no matter what stage of business you're in. So obviously, I'm giving you tons of examples from when I first became an entrepreneur, but we all know that that was over a decade ago. So what are some new strategies for modern entrepreneurs? If I were just starting today, and this is a question I get asked all of the time. So here are a few things that I would prioritize. In fact, here are 4 things that I would do if I were starting a business or working on scaling my side hustle that have to do with money. So first, utilizing tools and platforms. So I was a very slow adopter of utilizing different tools to help me run my business better. In fact, when I just moved into our new house, I still have filing cabinets with my paper signed contracts from my wedding photography days. Like, it took me a long time to buy HoneyBook so that I could do contracts and invoicing on the internet. And so in recent years, there's tools that we use all the time. We use Canva every single day, an amazing free tool for new entrepreneurs. We use Monday, which is our project management site. If you want to check out how we use it, it's jennalovesmonday.com. Monday has changed our life and our business. If I were starting today, it is one of the first things I would invest in because it allows you to manage your workflows. It allows you to create different projects. It allows you to track your progress. And then eventually, if you were to hire on a virtual assistant or any semblance of a team, they are just coming into your system and you have everything documented, stored, saved, and laid out for them. You can also use Zoom again to connect with other people. So like, I would just be looking at different platforms that can help streamline operations and improve efficiency. And most of them do not have significant upfront costs. So I just feel like there's been a massive boom in digital tools and platforms that entrepreneurs can use and leverage that are free to minimally expensive. And I just feel like those make being an entrepreneur so much easier. When I think about entrepreneurship, so many people go into entrepreneurship because they love this thing, right? Like for me, it was wedding photography. Like I loved photography. But when I realized that the actual art of taking photos on a wedding day was like 2% of what went into running a photography business, I knew that we had to figure out different ways. And so nowadays there are just so many amazing tools and platforms that if I were an early entrepreneur, that is where I would be investing. And again, it's not as sexy. It's not forward facing for your client, but it's going to help you do a better job. It's going to keep you more organized and give them a better experience. If you're serious about making connections that actually lead to results, LinkedIn is where it's at, especially if you're in the B2B world. With LinkedIn ads, you can get your business in front of the right people, like 180 million senior level executives and 10 million C-level execs. It's like the ultimate business network, but way more targeted and with fewer distractions. On other platforms, it can feel like you're shouting into the wind, but with LinkedIn ads, you're building real relationships with the right people, and that's where the magic happens. 79% of B2B marketers agree that LinkedIn is their number one for paid media, and it's easy to see why. LinkedIn gives you tools to drive real results, and with 2 to 5 times higher return on ad spend, it just makes sense. So if you want to build meaningful relationships, start making smarter moves with your marketing, and grow your business, it is time to get LinkedIn ads working for you. Make B2B marketing everything it can be and get $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/goal to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/GOAL. Terms and conditions apply. The next strategy, if I were just starting today, and this should not be a surprise, is really leveraging social media marketing. I mean, we talk about it, it's rented space, but when you go into social media knowing that like, hey, I can't control this platform or this algorithm, but I can get free access to the people that I want to serve, who I want to become customers, you better believe I would be on there. And honestly, looking back over my entire career, I have leveraged social media in so many different ways to grow my business. But I think it's just a really powerful time to be an entrepreneur with the fact that like you get to engage with your audience through authentic content, and you get to build a loyal customer base and drive sales through a free platform. So if I were starting out, I would definitely zero in on which platform I think my audience is on the most. And I would create a system and a strategy so that I could show up there consistently and serve and connect. And then understand that the ultimate goal is to get people off of social media and onto a place that I own, which would either be a website or an email list. But I would absolutely still be leveraging social media marketing. I would also consider looking at doing different types of models when it comes to revenue. So I'm going to talk about this in just a minute, but one of the hardest things for me when I first became an entrepreneur was the seasonality of my career. So I'm a wedding photographer in the Midwest. I was basically shooting from like April to October, and then from November all the way to March, it was a very quiet time. And so I've been watching a lot of younger entrepreneurs figure out ways to do more like subscription models, where basically this gives you more stability and predictability in your income, and it makes it easier to budget and plan for growth. And so I would just consider different ways that I could offer services and have more stability. So like what that would look like now is if I was still a photographer, maybe I would plan out like, hey, if you're going to be my clients, we'll do one shoot every 4 months and I'll do 3 shoots throughout the year. Or I could do something where you would be like a brand photographer and once a month you'd go work with an entrepreneur, shoot a bunch of content for them, and that would give you that stability and that recurring model. And then the other thing I would consider is doing pre-sales. So this is a strategy that I think is so smart, especially when you are getting started and you're kind of debating like, how much time and money do I invest into this business? Like, is it a viable business? Getting people to put money down saying, I want what you're going to sell, gives you not only the confidence, but it also gives you the funding that can be really important in those initial early stages of entrepreneurship. And so making sure that you have proof of concept, that people don't just say like, yeah, of course I want that, but they are actually willing to put their credit card down and you're able to collect some money so that you not only follow through on your promises, but that you have this viable idea before you invest too much into it. I just think pre-sales is a really smart way for a lot of different businesses just to make sure that they actually have a customer base and that their business will be viable. Okay, so I want to close this out with 3 final things that are really practical, but I think when it comes to financial success, these are non-negotiables. So first is budgeting and financial planning. So when I went to college, I double majored in business administration and communication. And as a part of my business administration degree, I had to take a personal finance class. And I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe that every single person on planet Earth should have to take a personal budgeting, a personal finance class. Like, financial literacy is so important. And it was such a bummer to me that this was a class I was taking my senior year. Like, I was just thinking about all the people who definitely needed this help. And so it was funny because when my mom retired a few years ago, she handed in her laptop back to her office and she was cleaning off all the files. And she actually found my personal budget that I had sent her. I don't even know why I sent it to her, that I created in college. And so this was like a budget where I was factoring in like, here's how much I have in student loans. Here's how much I'm going to make at my new job. I mean, I went all the way down to like budgeting for a movie night once a month. And that was just a really amazing way to see like, okay, you know, once a cell phone bill is paid and electric and all the different charges that I'm going to have for the month, how much do I have left over? And I truly believe that having all that down on paper and really seeing it in black and white allowed me to have the confidence of like, okay, every month I'm going to have $200 left over. I'm going to put that into my business. And so creating a budget helps track expenses and helps you manage your cash flow. And I thought this stat was really important. QuickBooks research indicates that 30% of small businesses fail due to cash flow issues, making effective budgeting crucial. And so you really want to make sure, did you know that if you have a clear budget and a financial plan, you are 50% more likely to succeed as an entrepreneur? 50%. Yeah, I think it is so important to understand budgeting and financial planning. And I cannot tell you how many entrepreneurs I've met who have worked so hard and they have not been tracking their expenses and their income all year. And then it comes around to tax time and they recognize, oh my gosh, I was literally making less than minimum wage doing this. Like, this was so hard. And so I just think it is so important that we start to understand how to financial plan, how to budget effectively, and how to understand the numbers. And if you are someone who has been told in your life or who has told yourself that you are not good with numbers, I want for us to change that narrative today, You are absolutely capable of knowing your numbers and understanding them in a beautiful way. And there are so many tools out there that can help you. But again, if you take my advice and get an accountant early, they will help you with these things, making you 50% more likely to succeed, which I think is absolutely worth every penny. The second practical thing is managing cash flow. So remember how I was talking about just how seasonal photography was? Well, I learned really quickly, like, wow, I am basically going to make all of my money in about 6 months' time. And then I'm going to have 6 months off, or the off season for wedding photography. And so when I started to really understand that, I worked with my accountants. And one of the things that I did that I thought was so smart, and I'm still doing today, is I put myself on payroll. So while I was collecting 6 figures of income in 6 months' time, I paid myself the same amount every single month, regardless of if I was shooting 5 weddings or 0 weddings. And one of the things that I did that I love that I did this is that even as my income grew, so when I was at Target, I was making like 50 grand a year. I had scaled my business to 6 figures within 3 years. Even when I had doubled my corporate salary, I was still paying myself the same amount I made when I was making 50,000. So I kept my income super tight for those first few years, even though I was bringing in more with the business, so that I could have a savings and be able to reinvest back into the company. And so I knew I could live off of X amount of money every month. So I'm not going to pay myself any more than that. I was able to live a very simple life. And that was the life that I wanted at that stage of life. And so figuring out how to manage your cash flow and really understanding that so much of business is cyclical. And so figuring out, well, what are the trends and rhythms that you'll likely face year after year after year? How can you plan for them? How can you make them work with you and for you? How can you prevent financial stress? How can you support sustainable growth? You want to make sure that you have a plan for managing your cash flow. 60% of small business owners report cash flow issues as their primary concern. That's why really understanding what your cash flow is going to look like and how to manage it effectively are absolutely huge when it comes to financial success. And then the last thing that I think is very practical, but something that a lot of people don't consider, is having an emergency fund. So to this day, I still have an emergency fund. An emergency fund is basically a safety net for unexpected expenses. Life is going to throw things at you, especially as an entrepreneur. And so you want to think about how you could have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved. So many people wished they would have had this when COVID hit and the world shut down and maybe their businesses were forced to shut down. And so you want to make sure that you have some sort of safety net, some sort of emergency fund. There's a study done by Bankrate that found that 39% of Americans do not have enough savings to cover $1,000 emergency expenses. This is why even when it's really hard and even when you really have to focus in on what is essential, what is a nice to have versus a need to have, that you start building up that emergency fund, especially as an entrepreneur, because life is going to happen and there are going to be things that happen. And so when you have that safety net, it gives you a lot more security. And I have found that unless you are safe and secure, it is really hard to be creative and to be excited about the work you're doing. And so clinging to safety and security first, I truly believe can help you unlock creativity, and building an emergency fund can be one of the best things you can do to feel both safe and secure as an entrepreneur. All right, there you have it. We covered a lot of ground today in today's episode. I hope that it gave you some clarity and confidence to make some smart money moves that are going to grow your business to new heights. If you remember nothing else from this conversation, hear this. The key to success is not about having all the resources at your disposal up front. It's about being strategic with what you have and making decisions that support long-term success. When bootstrapping, it is so important to invest in the essentials and to learn how to manage your time and your cash flow so that every single step you take brings you closer to your bigger goal. Your side hustle or your small business can absolutely turn into the success you've been working for. My goal for you is to stay consistent, to stay focused, to plan well, and to trust the process. Every single move you make today is paving the way for tomorrow's big wins. So goal diggers, keep pushing, stay disciplined, and remember, it is the long game that matters the most. I hope you loved today's episode. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. And of course, until next time, goal diggers, keep on digging your biggest goals. Thanks for pulling up a seat for another episode of the Goal Digger Podcast. I hope today's episode fueled you with inspiration, gave you information that you can turn into action, and realigned you with your true north in life and business. If you've enjoyed today's episode, head on over to goaldiggerpodcast.com for today's show notes, discount codes for our sponsors, freebies to fuel your results, and so much more. And if you haven't yet, make sure you're subscribed so that you never miss a future show. We'll see you next time, Goal Diggers.